A lot has happened since a gunman tried to assassinate Donald Trump on July 13, 2024, yet there are still quite a few unanswered questions about the 20-year-old who somehow got close enough to pull that trigger. People assumed a lot of things about shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks' motivations in the immediate aftermath of the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, that he was politically motivated, that something radicalized him, but it turned out none of that was provably true. Nothing that has come out about Crooks shed much light on his actions. His family was flagged by the Trump campaign in 2016 as potential supporters who would be particularly receptive to pro-gun messaging. His father is registered as a libertarian and his mother as a Democrat. Both are licensed social workers. Crooks himself made a donation to the Democratic-leaning Progressive Turnout Project in 2021, before he was old enough to vote. When he did register to vote, it was as a Republican. He was also rejected from his high school rifle team and was described by those who knew him and his family using generic terms like nice and normal.
I got the perception they were just nice people.
Sociologist Anna Velichkova summarized him to the Washington Post as having no extremist ideology, no mental health issues, no struggles at school, no family issues. He also wasn't involved with extremist groups. Retired FBI agent Carl Schmay compared Crooks to would-be Ronald Reagan assassin John Hinckley Jr., who just wanted to be noticed. Crooks did online searches for both Trump and President Joe Biden, along with other key officials prior to the assassination attempt. U.S. Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a member of the task force investigating the assassination attempt, wanted to have a look at Thomas Matthew Crooks' body, but he didn't get the chance. The Daily Mail reports that Higgins learned that the FBI released Crooks' body back to the shooter's family 10 days after his death, and his remains have since been cremated. It's not exactly unreasonable that a 20-year-old's family would want their son's remains, nor is it especially odd to opt for cremation. And who knows if anything would have come from examining Crooks' body. He was shot and killed by a Secret Service sniper. That's pretty much it. Even so, Higgins called the release of Crooks' remains disturbing and implied that the FBI was intentionally trying to interfere with the task force's inquiry. Others have used the opportunity to raise conspiracies and make accusations of cover-ups. The FBI, meanwhile, called Higgins' statements inaccurate and unfounded. Nonetheless, given the importance of the case, one might assume that the FBI would treat Crooks' body as a piece of evidence while investigations continued. It's pretty clear that Crooks wanted to shoot Donald Trump, but other elements of his plan may forever be a mystery. Case in point, the homemade detonator that was found on Crooks' body. The device resembled a cheap gray remote control and was photographed with what was presumably a backup 9-volt battery. As CNN explains, the remote control was connected to a receiver hooked up to explosives in Crooks' car, which was parked nearby. The explosives themselves were homemade.
There were also bomb-making materials found at his home.
The detonator definitely raises questions about what else Crooks was looking to do. Investigators were reportedly floating the idea that Crooks intended to use an explosion as a distraction at some point during the shooting, perhaps to let him escape if he thought that was possible. But that's just one guess, and it's unlikely we'll ever know. One thing that's very clear is that Crooks being able to take several shots at a major party's presidential candidate was a massive security failure. A lone gunman somehow climbed onto an unguarded rooftop 443 feet away from former President Trump. How did that happen? There are a lot of things that are still unknown. For one, it's still not clear how he physically climbed onto the roof. The CBC reported Crooks somehow used some unspecified mechanical equipment to climb up on the roof via pipes. Some people think he climbed up the external air conditioning equipment. He's also said to have bought a ladder just before the event. More importantly, why didn't anyone stop him? Multiple people in the crowd say they saw Crooks on the roof and pointed him out to authorities.
A guy beside me looks over and he said, "He has a gun. He has a gun."
There's evidence authorities had already seen him on the roof at least 20 minutes before he took aim at Trump. In fact, Crooks was deemed a suspicious person as much as an hour before Trump took the stage, the New York Post reports. Crooks had even ridden around the rally on his bicycle, casing the place out, and flown a drone around the area for an aerial view. Then Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, who has since resigned, told ABC News that the area was unmanned because the slope of the roof was too dangerous for agents to be positioned there. But security later stood on the roof without any problems. It just doesn't add up. According to the FBI, Crooks acted entirely alone. His former classmate Jason Kohler told the Associated Press that Crooks was indeed a loner who was, quote, bullied almost every day and sat by himself at lunch.
He was just bullied, he was bullied so much.
Gina Ligon, head of the National Counterterrorism Innovation Technology and Education Center at the University of Nebraska-Omaha, told the Washington Post that he fits the lone wolf profile. Ligon said that, like the aforementioned John Hinckley Jr., Crooks acted like someone who wanted to be remembered. But even with all that, Ligon says that him having no accomplices, or at least confidants, is hard to believe. She said, "Nobody acts alone, except the Unabomber." Despite Crooks' AR-style rifle belonging to his father, despite the apparent lack of connections between him and extremist groups, despite his lack of clear ideological motivations, and despite his explosives being homemade, Ligon and other analysts told the Washington Post that he came equipped with markers of a wider, quote, ecosystem. In other words, even if Crooks did organize and plan his attack without a shred of involvement from anyone else, he at least took influence from elsewhere.